We're now going to be using any one or more of 8 angle properties that we now know in order to find an unknown angle. Remember, there's the 3 angle properties we've learned recently: corresponding angles, alternate angles, and interior angles. And then there are the other 5 angle properties that we did before Christmas, which we revised at the start of this topic. And finally, there could be more than one way of getting an answer for an angle. So let's look at example A. We have our angle diagram, 2 unknown angles A and B, one angle that we know 50 degrees. Well, it's very easy to get A first because we can treat this as a letter X, and that means that A is vertically opposite 50. So those are vertically opposite angles. So angle A is just equal to 50 degrees, and that's because of the X rule. And then we can pencil that angle in our diagram. Okay, in order to get angle B, what we can do is draw a letter U such that A and B are inside the U and at the corners of the U, or the joints of the U. So if I were to trace over the 2 parallel lines and the line that joins them, the transversal, then we would have a letter U, and it contains 2 parallel lines. And then the angles that are inside the U and at the joints of the U, they are interior angles. They add up to 180 degrees. So to get B, we're going to subtract 50 from 180, which is going to give us 130. So that means that B is 130 degrees, and that's because of the U rule. Straightforward. Okay, example B then, a bit more complicated because we've more angles to find. The easiest one to get first is angle C, because angle C and 100 degrees are angles on a straight line because they are beside each other and they span a total angle of 180 degrees. So we're going to subtract 100 from 180 to get C, so that's going to give us 80 degrees for C. So C is equal to 80 degrees, and that's because of angles on a straight line, ASL, or supplementary angles. Pencil that in our diagram, so C is 80. Okay, the next plan. Well, we could actually get angle D, because if you look closely at angle D and angle C, you could actually draw a letter U such that D and C are inside the U and at the corners of the U. So let's do that. So that would be our letter U, and it contains 2 parallel lines. So the angles that are inside the U and at the corners of the U, those would be interior angles, which means they add up to 180 degrees. So if C is 80, that means that D must be 100. So D is equal to 100 degrees, and that is because of the U rule. And then we'll pencil that in our diagram. Okay, next plan. Well, what we could do then is we could work out angle F, because angle F is right beside angle D. And these angles span a total angle of 180 degrees, so those are angles on a straight line, or supplementary angles. So to get F, we're going to subtract 100 from 180, and that's going to give us 80. So angle F is just going to be 80 degrees because of angles on a straight line. So again, we can pencil that in on our diagram. Okay, our next plan, we could work out angle G, because if we take this little triangle at the top, we know 60 and we know 80 degrees, so that's enough to work out G. We're going to have to add 60 and 80 together and then subtract that total from 180 to get the remaining angle G. So let's add 60 and 80. So 6 and 8 is going to give us 14, so that's 140. We're then going to subtract that from 180 to get the remaining angle G. So that's going to leave us with 40. So that's what angle G is. So angle G is equal to 40 degrees, and that was because of angles in a triangle. And then we'll pencil that in our diagram. Okay, our last angle that we need to get is angle E, and the way in which we could get angle E is by using the F rule. So what I could do is trace over the two lines that angle E lies between. So I could trace over this bottom line, and I could trace over this line here, like that, and that would form part of our letter F. Then I would need to trace over this middle parallel line here to complete our F. Like that. So you can clearly see that the letter F contains two parallel lines, and that E and G are corresponding angles because they lie inside the letter F, they lie at the joints of the F, and they lie on the same side of each parallel line. So E and G are corresponding, so therefore E is the same as G. So if G is 40, then E is also 40 degrees, and that is because of the F rule. And again, you may have got some of these angles slightly differently than the method I used, and that's perfectly fine. No matter what method you use, no matter what angle property you use, provided you use them correctly, you will get the same answers for each angle.